I work accounts at the Goldberg Company and I work the office hours, and due to the extreme workload that comes with the March filings, I have to stay late. And staying late means that you are working more, and that makes me work late hours. I don't really like piling up my work files, so I try to work them before things end. I was playing that hustle. I didn't really belong to the whole office culture thing, but like everyone else, I have bills to pay, so I do that. I was in the office late, and I used to come early and do my job and leave. Other than me, there was this one guy, Alonzo, always there. He was the one who worked like that. One night while we were going through the files, me and Alonzo decided to bum a smoke in the back alley of the office. We were outside smoking, and then we saw something messed up. It was a figure, almost looked like it was dead, and was moving towards us. We barely could make anything of it, so we just looked at it, and as it got crippled towards us, we quit smoking and decided to head back to the office. Things were getting too weird for both of us. We decided to not talk about it and kept working. I had some files still incomplete and he had some files, so Alonzo said, "Hey man, that was weird. So when are you leaving?" And I said, "I still have some files left and I will leave as soon as I am done with them." We were there for a while, and then he left. I was the only one there. And around 10 minutes later, I decided to take another smoke break. And this time, I decided not to go to the back alley, and instead, I decided to go to the front gate and smoke there. I went out and saw that there was nobody, not even the guard. I stayed there for a while, and then I saw the guard in the distance in the alley, and I called him. I shouted over him, "Hey man, Devin, you good?" And then Devin grunted and started walking really slow to me. And before he could come to me, I got back up to my office, and then I reached office. Alonzo was there. I was there and Alonzo was running through the cabinet looking for things, and he was not looking good. Put my hand on his shoulder, and as I did, he got startled and said, "What the hell, man?" And I asked him, "You good, bro?" And he replied in panic, "He bit me, man. He bit me. I was outside going home, and he bit me." And I asked him, "Who bit you?" "Alonzo, who bit you?" And he said, "The guard man, Devin. Devin bit me. He was being all weird, and now I feel weird, and you feel..." And he was talking, I could see him being all sleepy, and he fainted right in front of me. As he dropped on the floor, I couldn't help but notice his bite marks. They were bad, and I tried waking him up. And then suddenly, he opened his eyes, and he started grunting at me. I quickly stepped away from him. I was keeping my distance. And Alonzo got up and started chasing me, but he was slow. And that is when it hit me. He was bit by a zombie. That meant one thing. Devin was a zombie. With Alonzo trying to bite me, I was in a hurry, and I kept running. I ran down the building and saw that Devin was waiting at the door, and as soon as he saw me, he started chasing me. I ran to the back alley where the same figure before was lurking. I sneaked quietly and tried to get to my car as fast as I could. There were some zombies lurking in the parking lot, so there was no way I could get to my car from there. So I somehow ran and tried to get to my home as soon as possible. And I was running, and there were zombies everywhere, and there were people other than me running from them, and even people turning into one. I wasn't focusing much on any of them. I just kept running. It was then that I must have missed the turn, and I reached a dead end. A literal dead end. I tried opening up doors and tried climbing the wall, but there was no luck. I was surrounded by zombies. And then that was when I realized I will be one of them. And then they all started to come closer, and I just closed my eyes. I opened my eyes and found myself on the desk of my office. I must have fell asleep. I looked across the room, and Alonzo was still working, and I checked for any bite mark. I did find one. It was on my hand. It was a mosquito, thankfully, and not a zombie. Hey guys, thanks so much for all the support. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please feel free to do so. The secret of mine is that I've always wanted to SAS a customer as you read online. You know, The kind where a person asks to see the manager and the staff member does a flamboyant 180-degree spin and says, "That's me." I got to live that dream. Although that being said, I think it's nearly got me quite badly hurt too. A few years back, a customer had come into our branch of Starbucks an hour or so earlier and booked a table for his girlfriend and himself, and left some table decor he wanted to set the table up with. It seemed a little weird, but nevertheless, I offered to set up roses, LED candles, and cloth napkins for them so they could leave to get ready. I finished setting up the table when in walks Mr. Businessman. The store is basically empty at this point. It's 4:30 in the afternoon, too early for any sort of dinner rush, and so there are lots of tables free. Mr. Businessman walks up and asks to use the table clearly set up for a romantic night. I politely said it's been reserved, but there are many other tables he can take a seat at, but insists that he has that table. I take him to the table directly next to it and say this table is free, but he doesn't want that seat. He wants the reserved seat. He starts to raise his voice, and at that point, I can see he is choosing to be difficult for no other reason but to be difficult. I repeat myself, that table is reserved, and that's when he says it. He asks to see the manager. I feel the moment it spread through my whole body, starting from my suddenly beaming smile all the way to my fingertips and overworked feet. I feel the power I suddenly possess flow over me. This is it. This is my moment. I look around, then down at my name badge and gasp as it says manager under my name. I smile and say, "That's me, sir. I'm the manager." I was being awful and petty, and he's beyond angry at this point and raises his finger, stabbing the air around me and says, "What's your name? I'll be reporting you to head office." And that was honestly the least of my worries. Like, for a little while, I legitimately thought this guy was going to hurt me was honestly worth it. To make this guy so angry, this absolute psycho, to pay for my witty little comment with my health or life. I think I got very lucky because he leaves in an angry huff and says he'll be taking his business elsewhere. He ended up returning an hour later, and there's now a regular in our store. He greets me by my name every time he comes in. I've been hugely into online gaming for as long as I can remember. As many others might testify, beating your friends on split-screen Mario Kart was fun, but beating some faceless stranger on Age of Empires 2 has a legit rush. Like, I always imagined it was some super smart older kid and getting their butt handed to them by me, the 10-year-old tactical genius, and the whole thing kicked off a love affair with online games that stayed strong ever since. But the past 8 years or so, my game of choice has been Counter-Strike Global Offense. Being a sweaty FPS veteran, I played the first game a whole bunch and was super excited to get to grips with its successor. When I got my hands on it, I was hooked, and over the years, I moved from clan to clan, playing with an ever-shifting international group of people until I settled on the clan. And now it's run by his husband and a wife pair in their 40s, and they generally keep the whole operation running smoothly and drama-free, hence why it's been my steady clan for the past couple of years. I say generally because there was one quite significant incident involving another clan member that had a significantly negative impact on my life. So there's this one particular girl that I used to play with quite regularly, who had the username K9 Disclaimer. Not her exact username. I just don't want her to hear me telling about the story so she can't find me again. At first, Kay actually seemed really cool, and judging from her profile picture, pretty cute too. She was exactly the kind of girl I'd been crushing on back before I was married. But since I was with Lena, all that kind of stuff was totally off the cards, and the relationship we had was entirely platonic. My whole life was going swimmingly for a while, and I was very happy. Right up until my wife decided that she wasn't so happy, and that she was going to file for divorce. It hit me like a ton of bricks. I had no idea she was so unhappy with our marriage, and as much as she insisted it wasn't me, that she had her own issues going on, I still blame myself. Add on to that the fact that she would be seeking full custody of our 3-year-old daughter. I was broken. I sank into the pit of drinking and stayed up super late, losing myself in single-player stuff because I just couldn't face interacting with people. I did make an effort to keep the clan updated, like I didn't want them thinking that I died or ghosted or whatever. So I told them about the divorce and how I wasn't feeling so hot. They were super supportive, and I'll always remember that, and they had the presence of mind give me the time and space that I needed to get myself together again. All but one canine, like I said, K, was just my type, and I know that there was a slight chemistry between us, but in the aftermath of getting such horrible news, I was in no mood to contemplate dating again, and I knew I wouldn't be getting back on that horse anytime soon. But Kay didn't see it that way. Apparently, and over the following weeks, showed herself to be anything but the friend that I needed right now, as she once put it. It started off all innocent, getting my real name off a mutual friend so she could wish me well on Facebook. It was an unexpected intrusion, but not entirely unwelcome one. She was worried. I got that. So I let her know I was in a bad place, but then I was dealing with it. The conversation was amicable. She sent me a friend request that I had no problem accepting. Then, that was that. Or so I thought anyway. What started as a few gentle inquiries quickly turned into something totally overwhelming. After a week or so of getting messages from K9, the tone had gone from kind and understanding to weirdly accusatory. A perfect example of this is when she messaged me something like, "I want to hear more from you," or "hear from you is only making me feel worse. Need to understand that your actions have an effect on those around you." Now, this is like one of the lowest points of my life, and she's sending me messages like that. It didn't just make a depressing situation all the more draining. It actually turned a switch in me, and I started to feel anxious and angry towards her. This is about the time I would just started ducking her messages entirely. I didn't need that kind of drama in my life. I had enough on my plate as it was. The next escalation came when my soon-to-be ex-wife called one morning, presumably to talk about some depressingly tedious aspect of her upcoming divorce. Only, it wasn't the divorce that had prompted her call. It was something else entirely. She started off the call by asking who in God's name is insert K9's real name, and she sounded livid. I remember just sitting there in shocked silence for a moment, neurons firing my brain as I pieced all together in a matter of seconds. Except, in K9's friend request meant that she had access to every one of my Facebook contacts, a type of privacy I never really thought of previously, which obviously included all of my close friends and family along with my soon-to-be ex-wife. I tried to explain that Kay was someone I played CSGO with and some innocent explanation, but I knew what was happening. Kay had obviously been in touch with my wife, and whatever message she'd sent, it definitely not been friendly. But far from being friendly, Kay's messages have been downright abusive, and from my wife described, straight up threatening in several places. She said she'd be in touch with the police to file a complaint, but how that wouldn't be necessary. Fine, just kept my freaking mouth shut. So now, not only is Kay not helping things, she's actively making things worse. And what's more, her behavior's reflecting badly on me too. As my ex's divorce lawyer would most definitely use her messages in any kind of custody battle, so for the first time in about a week, I reached out to Kay to ask her to stop what she was doing. It was a well-worded, polite message, which I actually redrafted to make it sound as non-confrontational as possible. But still, she took it terribly. She tries calling using the messenger feature, and that won't pick up, and she just bombards me with apologies at first, confessing her love until her mood switched and her tone got decidedly nasty. I don't want to go into too many details, but what she said, it was long-winded, drawn out, and thoroughly upsetting. But let's just say a lot of it involved my crumbling marriage and my ability as a father, something that really hit home at the time. I was heartbroken, but I had the wherewithal to do the right thing and just cut Kay out of my life. I blocked her on Facebook, Discord, and Steam, and foolishly think she's gone for good, and that I can do my grieving in peace and get back to online gaming when I feel good and ready. Literally about a month later, boom, the pandemic happens. I don't mean to make light of a horrible situation, but the whole work from home thing was exactly what I needed. I could do my homework in my own space, and I didn't have to suffer through having to go into public during my post-divorce stubble and hangover periods. Naturally, working from home meant Zoom calls galore. I don't think many people have even heard of Zoom before the pandemic, but now I think you'd be hard-pressed to find someone who hasn't. Just imagine owning stocks in Zoom pre-COVID. He'd be Scrooge McDuck style rich right now. But anyway, one afternoon, I'm in a Zoom meeting with my head of department and a few of my coworkers. There's no real agenda. We're just kind of rambling about a new project we were working on, doing it more for the social contract than anything. It's a chill meeting, but I am psyched about the project. Upper management eyes won't be all over it when it's completed, and given it's my brainchild, my name is going to be all over it. When all's said and done, I can be in line for a shift up the company ladder, and you can only imagine what that prospect is doing for my self-esteem and confidence post-divorce. I'm drinking less and focused for the first time in months. You get the idea. So I'm not sure if you know how Zoom works, but unless the host sets a password, pretty much any Zoom user can jump into the call to either participate or, in some cases, disrupt it. But this is late April, and the fan of moronic YouTube kids hacking Zoom calls hasn't quite taken off yet. So generally speaking, anyone who jumped into the call was a company employee. A little box pops up stating someone's name. They can then switch their camera on and participate as well. So right in the middle of the Zoom call, same old thing happens. A little box pops up, and what we think it's like Adam from another branch popping in to talk numbers or something. Only, the name isn't anything we recognize. In fact, it's not even a name at all. It just has a series of letters and numbers that has a sound like hi, who just joined this new users and saying or doing anything. But we know they can hear us. I just assume we're waiting for them to load in or switch their webcam on or something, but we're left waiting in an uncomfortable silence for the longest time. And only when my head of department threatened to kick them from the card, they actually streamed the video. I didn't recognize who it was at first, but when I did, the sinking feeling of dread was indescribable. It was K9, only she didn't quite look how I remembered her. Instead of the cute bubbly features and shock of blonde hair, Kay looked like she lost a ton of weight, and the once glossy long hair had looked thin and greasy. And boss says something like, "I'm sorry, may I ask who just joined?" He tried to remain polite, but you can see how shocked and creeped out he is by what he's seeing. I mean, Kay looked awful, almost like she was dying. I should have acted quicker. I know that I should have just manned up and told my boss to kick her, that she was going to cause trouble. But on some level, I still cared about Kay. And seeing her in such a bad way was as upsetting as it was morbidly curious and horrifying. "Where you been?" she asked, using my real name. There was no denying it now. "I missed you so much. I haven't eaten. I haven't slept. I just need to know you're okay." "You know this girl?" one of my coworkers asked, but it was barely a question. It was more like an indictment. Like it was saying something must be wrong with me that I know a girl like that, and that somehow it was my fault. She was in such a state in the first place, I don't think I have long left, Kay. Then went on to say, following up with, "I just wanted to say goodbye, but I wanted to show you something before I go." She backs off from the camera a little. At this point, I know that I should have just hung up her screen, something, but we all just couldn't stop staring. And honestly, I felt like I was in some kind of dream. Raising up her arm, and we could all see that she had cut 4 letters into her arm. The cuts looked like they were scabbing over, but still looked incredibly painful, swollen, and possibly infected. But despite the grainy webcam footage, we can clearly say with the letters spelled my name. Then poof, she's gone. She hangs up. There's a stunned silence for a moment before my boss says something along the lines of, "I think you should go check on your friend." Next thing you know, I'm kicked from the call. At this stage, she might have just messed up probably the most important meeting in a long time, but I'm honestly too angry and in some ways worried about her. I jump back into my Facebook account, only it's my turn to dig up as much information on her as I can. I spin the message over to a guy that happened to be tagging a lot of her photos, asking if he's seen or spoken to Kay in the past couple of days. And this is where things get really weird, because I find out that this guy is actually her boyfriend. Yup, her actual long-term boyfriend of 2 years. Walt tells me that Kay is fine and that she looked terrible because she's shooting a short horror movie for a community college course she's taking, one in which he's playing some kind of victim. By that time, I'm just stunned at how manipulative Kay is capable of being. She is willing to take a shot at ruining my career because I won't give her any attention. And she's actually unavailable. I'm so angry that I just think screw it and tell her boyfriend about everything she's doing. He legit knew nothing of all the harassment and confessions of love, actually thanks me and tells me he'll be confronting her about it soon as she's home from college. I still have her blocked, but I figure I can check in with her soon-to-be ex-boyfriend. So how the whole thing went down. Look at this. Next time I talk to the guy, he's in the hospital. Apparently what I told him caused an argument that ended their relationship. Only the next morning, as they're leaving for work, she drives over him in her car. He rode a bike to work in the morning, whereas she drove, and this psycho decides she'd rather kill him than let him go. Guy got his hip and femur crushed and was seriously lucky not to lose his life. Pays arrest, and a couple of days later, the boyfriend passes information on to the media that she had been taken to a psychiatric hospital after a complete and utter mental breakdown. I told the guy how sorry I was, wished him all the best, and honestly, that's the last time we spoke. An insane story, all true, all that trauma, all that fear and suffering and worry because of someone I never even flirted with, even befriended outside of the game, barely even knew what she looked like or even cared. I just enjoyed playing games. That made me realize how crazy and delusional some people in the world are, and how someone online can completely destroy your life. Fortunately, I don't think my wife ever told her divorce lawyer about the messages Kay sent her. In the year after the fact, I get to see my daughter more often than some other divorced dads do, which is, thank God, a huge win for me. But despite all my efforts, I can't seem to quite get Kay out of my head. I'm slow to get back into the dating game, and it's honestly because I'm terrified that I'll meet another girl like her, because I might not survive another girl who's possessive, manipulative, or downright evil as K9 either physically or emotionally.